I hope everybody that's is staying safe, and a huge thank you for taking the time out of the day to join us. I know it's an extremely difficult time for teachers across the world right now, so thank you for taking the time out of the day to join us today. Hopefully in this webinar, you'll get to hear some great ideas on how to enhance remote learning in your classrooms, learn how to work better with teachers and students and parents in your community, and just use the chat box to share any ideas that you have, introduce yourselves, and also ask loads of questions as well. If we can't answer them, then I'm sure somebody in the chat will be able to answer them. I'd just like to introduce our amazing guests today. So first of all, we've got Mariah Rackley, who's a principal at Cedar Crest Middle School in Pennsylvania. Mariah, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm super excited to be here with you. Appreciate the invitation. I'm a middle school principal in Pennsylvania. We're a large middle school. We're about 1,170 students in grades 6 to 8. But we're super excited to chat about this today. I think it's just such a relevant topic for everybody, and so we're grateful to be here and learn from all of you and share what ideas we can.
Amazing, thank you so much. And next we've got Brandy Reams. Brandy Reams is a kindergarten teacher from Wilson, North Carolina. Brandy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, yes, I am usually a kindergarten teacher in Wilson, North Carolina. Right now, I'm a full-fledged kindergarten teacher from my home. So aside from that, I also co-captain the Wakelet Boathouse, where we tutor other educators. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about how this weird transition has affected me in my classroom, and hopefully share some things that you can use.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brandy, and welcome. And lastly, but not least, we've got Erin Flanagan, a tech integrator from New Jersey. Erin's been working with us a lot. She put an incredible collection out, which was, I think, one of the most popular remote learning collections that were posted online recently. So yeah, it was really good. Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Erin Flanagan. I am a full-time educational technology blogger, and I also provide PD to teachers, educators, and right now I'm also a reluctant homeschooler. I have 3 kids at home right now, so that's kind of my current journey.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us once again. You can see everybody introducing themselves in the chat, which is great. Guys, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties at all, we do apologize. Sometimes the best option is to just click off the window and then just try and join the webinar again. If you're having trouble finding the link, you can just go to our Twitter page, and we just posted the link out straight away. So if you're having any sound issues and that type of stuff, then that should help. Okay, so let's jump right in. Erin, this is to you, but obviously everybody else can answer as well. What current tools, other than Wakelet, are you using to enable remote learning? You know, I spoke with a teacher in Poland just yesterday, and you know, she was using Zoom to hold lessons with 30 plus students all online at the same time. She found it really, really challenging. Everybody had to mute their mics. People were just like closing the window and just going off. She had to like mute the chat box because she couldn't control what was going on. Outside of the stuff that you've been doing on Wakelet, what other platforms have you been using that you find very useful and that you think teachers would benefit from in a remote learning environment?
So I run a technology Facebook group, and it seems like most teachers are using a combination of Zoom, Google Classroom, and in elementary especially, there's a lot of teachers that are using Seesaw, and that's actually what my children's teacher uses. And I appreciate that she uses something that is more designed towards younger students, because then they can also use it themselves. Another one that I've seen a ton of teachers using is Microsoft Teams, and kind of in all of those, people are also integrating Flipgrid to create the videos and to stay connected to their students.
Amazing. And Mariah and Brandy, do you have any other tools that you can think about that would be helpful in a remote learning environment?
Yeah, so for my classroom, I am using Zoom to host meetings. And I've set up a whole platform through Wakelet for my children to be able to navigate each day. And I can actually show you what that looks like, if that's okay with everybody. So I'm just going to try to share my screen really quick with you. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep, okay. All right, so on my Wakelet page, I actually was able to create a category just for e-learning. So every day, my students are logging on to here, and they're taking a look at the things that we have per day. And I apologize. Apparently, my internet's going really slow. So you'll see I have day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have been able to go through and give my students a list of things that I want them to do every day. And I'm also hosting Zoom meetings with them. So we're actually meeting in 2 different groups. So I have about 12 students at a time. And we go through our lesson, and I record the lesson. I upload it here to Wakelet for those that are not able to join with us live. And so they're able to watch it back later. Even for the ones that can join live with us, it's still good to have the ability to go back and view it at a later time. And so that's what I've been doing each day. It's been working very well. And again, I have kindergartners, so these are very young children that are working with this. But it's amazing to see the parent support that I'm getting with this too. They're sitting right there with their children, and it's bringing a whole new aspect to it as well. Like, oh, my child really is struggling with this. It wasn't just the teacher saying that they were. So, now they know, hey, I need to jump in there and help a little bit more. So it's been wonderful.
Awesome. And how about you, Mariah? Any other tools other than Wakelet that you found useful? Obviously, as a principal, you probably have a little bit of a different oversight over that type of stuff. So any other kind of tools that you'd recommend?
Sure, just a couple, and maybe because I'm a principal, maybe it's because I'm a middle school person, but I would suggest Flipgrid, and I would also talk about Screencastify as really cool tools that give you the opportunity to have kind of that personal connection, or have that do the video so that students are seeing you and feeling that connection to you. I think those are powerful tools also.
Amazing. So we've got some really cool tools there that you guys can check out. And I know that the online community has been amazing. Like, as soon as something happened, as soon as this issue, happened, and people realized what this, how significant it was, a lot of people came together and started sharing tools. And, it's been amazing to see how many suggestions have been, put out there. We'll move on to the second question. Mariah, this is really mainly for you, but obviously, again, anyone else can jump in. What types of fears do you think educators are experiencing through all of this? This is very sort of uncharted territory at the moment. This is unprecedented. For as long as I can remember, nothing like this has ever happened before, where an entire workforce, an entire infrastructure, an entire industry almost has just had to, go offline and start working from home. What advice would you give teachers who are facing school closures and have fears that this is going to change everything and be very, very overwhelming?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I'm going to try and answer both parts of the question. So the first thing, I think people are worried about their students. Teaching is a really personal thing that we do when we're educators, and so I think everyone's really worried for their students and their students' families and their community. So I think that's a worry. I think people are worried for their own loved ones and what that means, and if they live with folks who are part of vulnerable populations or have people who are vulnerable populations in their families. I think they're worried about that. And then I think we get into other worries that are more technical worries when we get to talk about minutes and the requirements and what are our deadlines and our timelines and how are we going to do this or how are we going to do that and how are we going to do some of those logistical things that we always do. So I think there's lots of worries right now. And that doesn't even get into the whole, like, what do we do while we're shut down worries, or how do we get our training, or how do we get all of our hours in. So I think there's lots and lots of worries, but to answer the second part of your question, some advice maybe. So first and foremost, I think we have to try really hard not to panic. I think we need to keep calm, level heads and just keep doing what we do. And because education's so personal, I think one of our goals has to be trying to find ways to stay connected to our students and our families and our communities. I think we miss each other, and we miss our students, and we miss our colleagues, and we miss that sense of community we have every day. But I think we have to find creative ways to stay connected. So I do a lot of posting on social media. So I've been posting about books I'm reading or projects I'm doing. things I'm doing at home with my own children. And so I think that's really an important way to stay connected. I'm currently actually at work, and I made a little video out in our commons area that I'm going to post later tonight, just telling everybody that I missed them, and the building's kind of weird when they're not here. It's not the same. But I think we have to find creative ways to stay connected, and we have to find our kiddos where they are. So I know my middle schoolers live on Instagram, so I'm going to post my videos to Instagram because that's where they're going to see them, because I want them to have that connection. And I think the last piece of advice I would offer is to be patient. The answers are not fast in coming, and that doesn't mean that your administrators and your politicians and everyone else, it doesn't mean that they're not working hard to get you the answers. It just means that there aren't a lot of answers out there. You know, you said it's unprecedented, and it is. And so I think we just have to be patient, and we really have to kind of roll with it right now. And that's really hard to do because I think there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of worry, but I think just being patient and taking everything one day at a time, right? Everyone's going to go one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, and we're all going to see kind of what happens, and we're just going to navigate this together. And I think what we've seen online and in social media is we've seen educators just really band together in a really kind of cool way. And I think that's what we need to just keep doing.
Yeah, I think that's something that we noticed as well immediately. It's like, I think that I had a conversation with a gentleman called Jeffrey from an organization called CrowdEd, and he said that it's like extremely, a very, very overwhelming time for educators now because, you know, they're not only having to deal with, you know, this whole kind of new world, but they also have the responsibility of having the students that, you know, the people that the little people that they spend their whole lives with, you know, teaching and educating, they kind of have that as a responsibility as well. And he said that it's very important to just, first of all, settle in, like, you know, this could go on indefinitely. So take a week to just settle in, you know, experiment, try and find, you know, things that work for you, like you said, and you know, just look for help online, look for help through the education community, because that's how most people have been, you know, finding out what to do. Erin, do you have any thoughts on that? How to address, you know, fears that teachers might have on you know, this kind of strange new world situation?
I think the biggest advice I have for that is just to connect with other teachers and educators who are going through the same thing. Whether it's on Twitter or, you know, Facebook, there's tons of different Facebook groups for whatever niche you're in. The one I am part of is called Teach with Tech. We're in there every day, and there's different people who have never used digital tools, and don't be afraid to ask, you know, say, here's what's going on. It amazes me how giving and generous with their time teachers are answering questions. We have people that'll just post a 5-minute, like, here, watch me do this demo video right in the group to help somebody with a question. So that is one thing that I would say is just connect as much as you can through social media, you know, whatever your platform is of choice.
Sorry, I just had to unmute my mic there because of the issues I'm having. Brandy, what about yourself? You know, you've been using Wakelet for a long time. I can see from your profile, and Wilson Prep has a really strong community within the school as well. You know, your PLN, it's very strong. You're all communicating with each other. How would you kind of allay some of the fears that teachers have around this, and what sort of advice would you give them before they kind of begin this you know, working from home journey?
Yeah, so oddly enough, in our community, the parents are a little more worried than the teachers are. We feel like we've got a pretty good, solid game plan, but the parents are really worried about their kids missing out on instruction. So for us, it's been much more of the reassuring parents. My biggest thing is just like y'all said, we're going to take this first week as trial and error. We want to see what works, what doesn't work, you know, how to fix the different things that we're doing. So I am focusing on getting all of the foundation laid this week, and then next week we're just going to kind of step up the rigor a little bit and throw things in there how we can. I don't know, I've been trying to reassure parents and other educators that, you know, this is just week 1. Most of us are in day 2 because Monday was a teacher work day for us. So we're not going to solve it all in 2 days. We're not going to solve it all in 5 days. This has never been done before in the history of the world. So, you know, I think we're doing pretty good, you know, to be where we are right now. So I say just hang in there, have some fun with it, realize that, you know, your kids also need to be kids and they don't need to be in front of a computer all day, every day anyway. So, just kind of follow your teacher's lead and realize that your teachers are humans too. So, we are not going to be perfect and we're not going to get everything the first time, but we'll work hard on it.
Exactly, and I think people are loving that in the chat, having just like a nice, calm, flexible approach. Sharon just said that she's going to dress up with silly hats and costumes in her videos just to kind of humanize the experience and maybe make it a little less serious, because obviously the students are going through something that's, can be very difficult and very disruptive to their learning and their development as well. So I think little things like that just help, not trivialize the situation, but just kind of make light of it in a way, because they are little kids and, they might look around and see what's happening and be extremely panicked. So I really love that from Sharon as well. Okay, this other question is for Brandy as well. So how do parents come into this? Because, parents, obviously, I'm sure they have a lot of anxieties over what's going on with their students, their kids' education. There's a lot of disruption going on in their lives as well. So just in the UK today, a few hours ago, it was announced that, we begin closing our schools now. So on Friday, all schools are going to close. But what our government has done is said that any parents that have, or any people that have like critical jobs like nurses and I guess other jobs as well, firemen, police, that type of thing, firewomen, the students from those families, they will go to school and they'll have like reduced lessons, like smaller lessons, just to take the pressure off the parents. But Brandy, you communicate with parents a lot through your Wakelet profile. Have you had any feedback from them, and what types of questions have you had from them, and how would you advise other teachers in the community to kind of allay their fears as well, the parents as well as teachers?
Yeah, so a lot of it is like what I said, parents are stepping up and they're becoming an integral role in their student educations now. And it's, before they were just kind of the support system to the teacher. You would go home and you would send them home with homework, and, that's kind of a recap of the day. Now the parents are actually sitting with their children through the lesson, and I find from the Wakelet side, it has been really helpful to be able to lay out our whole day and our whole lesson for them. I love that I've been able to categorize. So if you look at my Wakelet profile, you'll see that day 1 through 5, there's a different subject for each day. So I'm not trying to cram everything in on one day because I don't want to overwhelm the kids or the parents. So I've had really positive feedback as far as that goes. And as far as, using the different tools to go with it, Flipgrid has been very helpful. I know that they're experiencing some kind of high volume problems right now too. I think we kind of all are, but just from the communication side of things, parents want to know how they can make sure that I keep track of how their child is doing. And I tell them, just make sure that your child is reading, and when things do get smoothed out, I'll set up Flipgrid so that they can read their stories to me, and have different platforms like that so that we can stay active. I think it's super important that we at least make sure we show ourselves to our students at this time, because they are so used to seeing us. And for many of them, they rely on us. And, it could be that parents work, weird hours at home. And so we see them more than their parents do sometimes. So just making sure that you are putting yourself out there so that you can continue to be a part of your students' lives. I think that is going to be the biggest thing for teachers, parents, and students right now.
And Mariah, any sort of issues or feedback that you've had from parents, obviously as a principal, what's kind of your perspective on dealing with the anxieties that parents might have about this whole situation?
I don't think you can ever over communicate. So I think providing parents any way, whether it's through, like I said, through social media, through Wakelet, through your school district website, or your school website, just giving them that way, all those ways to get in touch with you, because I think they need the same reassurance. I think they're worried about it. You mentioned, in the UK, families who are emergency responders or have those kind of essential positions, and I think we're looking at those same questions here in the US too. Well, what do I do if I have to go to work? What do I do if I have to have my kids at home alone? And so I think there's lots of questions and anxieties in everybody, and I think we've really tried to say things like, let's just hang tight, right? You can never read too much. You can never, do some of those online learning opportunities, whether it's through a tool that you pay for or a tool that you don't. You can never have too much of that, but at the same time, it's okay to say that this week we're just really going to regroup. I think that's a great piece of advice, and just kind of get the lay of the land, because this is a very different time. I mean, I have 2 boys in elementary school, and yesterday one of their teachers posted their read aloud on YouTube, and sent a remind through the Remind app, right, which was a great message, just a little quick remind. And then we were able to watch the read aloud, and I felt my son just relax and feel so good and so comfortable, just having that visual with his teacher, and just having that 18 minutes of what he felt was face-to-face time with her, and just feeling so good about it. And so I think anything we can do, whether it's a read aloud or a flip grid, or I just saw some of our teachers have posted Wakelets in our district. So I saw one from a music teacher that was a Wakelet collection of musical opportunities that students can do while they're at home. And then we have a 6th grade team here in the middle school that posted, so students can start collaborating with each other and sharing what they're doing while they're at home in a very safe space. And so I think those are both really just important ways to communicate with kids and families, and just help ease some of their transition into this time too.
That's amazing to hear. I mean, when you talk about the communication piece as well, it's really nice to see how all of the other platforms are kind of like coming together to help that work. So, way back when we partnered with Flipgrid and had the Flipgrid integration into Wakelet, we never thought it'd be used in a situation like this, but it's become really critical for teachers, because they're putting lesson plans out on, all sorts of subjects. And it's obviously never going to be as effective as face-to-face communication, but it's almost got that nice little bit of novelty about it that does perk up the students' attention once they go on this Wakelet, and then they can see like a Flipgrid video that's been embedded from within the Wakelet of their teacher speaking, and giving them some instructions. Big shout out to Mr. V on Twitter. He shared a really, really incredible remote learning collection, which was all about the civil rights movement. And he had some incredible videos that he just posted, and it was really simple. It didn't have to be like a big show and dance. It was just using the Flipgrid integration in Wakelet. He just quickly recorded something saying, I'd like to hear your reflections on this, or he read something from a book or a little piece from an article and said, what do you think about this, guys? That type of thing. So it really does make all the difference. Erin, I just wanted to move on to you. Do you think, in this like really difficult situation that we find ourselves in, do you think that any positives will come from this? Because like you said, like everyone's been saying, it's like a whole new world, and it might be a little premature to ask that question. But I've seen so many creative ideas come out of this situation. Do you think that there are any positives from this whole remote learning story, and what would they be?
I mean, one thing I'm hoping for down the road is that people feel more confident in their ability to use some of these tools, because they're using them every day, and that makes a huge difference. If your district is requiring remote learning and you're getting on and using video tools, you kind of get over some of the initial hesitation, especially with regard to filming and sharing work, collecting work. I think teachers are some of the most creative people there are, and just some of the things I've seen people pull together and some of the lesson ideas and sharing has been amazing. Sometimes, they say creativity happens under constraints, and sometimes these negative constraints, something good could come of it, as far as just the community that's built together and sharing. The other thing I think is just as a parent as well, I think, and I'm seeing it all across social media, that I love this side conversation of parents having this new appreciation for teachers and all the work that they do, and administrators too. I know that's a lot. A lot of them are kind of being silly and joking, but it is true. I think that, it's always good to see teacher appreciation in the forefront in conversations. And just as like a total side note, because it was something that has come up in a bunch of the groups I'm in, I also like the fact that districts have really addressed or talked about, or again, bringing that conversation forward about access to devices, access to internet. The digital divide is a very real issue we have, and it's something that not everybody thinks about. A parent at home might not be aware So I always think it's good, in these sort of negative times, that it is something that people are communicating about and trying to solve and discussing.
Amazing. And Brandy, I guess the same question to you. Do you feel like any positives will come out of this? In terms of finding perhaps new ways to innovate when it comes to teaching and new ways to engage your students, perhaps.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about this last night. I don't know. I'm sure many other teachers feel like I do. It's hard to take any kind of vacation days during the school year. It's hard to be out when you're sick. So I'm that person that wants to figure out how I can make the best plans that I can for my students so that there are no real bumps in their days. So, now I'm thinking, hey, if I know I'm going to have to be out for 2 days because I have to go to this event or this PD or something, I can use all of the technology and all of the resources that I have been exposed to over the last week and record these lessons for these guys so that their self can play them and have me still presenting the lesson to them. So I think that there are many positives that will come out of this. I know that's a big one for me. I feel like the parent-teacher relationship is going to be much better after this thing. I am friends with many parents on Facebook, and I have seen many hilarious stories so far. And we have gotten many thank yous for what we do. So I think that we have quite a few positives that we can find from this whole situation.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think that we all do feel like teachers are a little underappreciated. I think that perhaps this kind of will highlight the significance that education has. And how integral it is to just a normal functioning part of society, because it's like everything was kind of, once this kicked off, it was like, okay, this is really bad. But then once the schools closed, it was like, okay, now this is really bad. It's like almost like it's the school closure element. Like just today, like I said, feeling it in the UK, we've been a little bit slow off the mark. But as soon as we heard the news, like, okay, the schools are closing, it's like, oh wow, do you know what I mean? So I think that maybe, it will kind of highlight, I guess, the significance of education and how that fits into society as well. What do you think, Mariah? Any benefits that we can, any positives that we can glean from this pretty, horrible situation?
Yeah, I think Erin and Brandy, have really hit the nail on the head. I just think that, it's a very unique opportunity. Actually, the video I recorded for our students today, here's a little preview. We did One Book, One School this year with our students, and the book we read was actually Restart by Gordon Corman. If you haven't read it, it's a fantastic book, but it really talks about kind of a do-over opportunity. And so one of the questions that we talked about a lot since January is, wouldn't it be kind of interesting if you could have a do-over? So my message today to the students is to try to do something new, to try something different that you might not have done before, because now, let's be real, right now you have the time and the space, and so try something new, do something different, step outside maybe what a normal comfort zone would be, because I just think that that's an opportunity to just do something new. So hopefully there's good that comes out of this. The other thing that I think is the connectedness that comes from maybe missing each other a little bit. And I can see that, we've been really talking a lot on social media among ourselves in our group, about being connected with each other. And so we've all kind of thrown out ideas or pockets, and we've all been participating in each other's kind of social media chatter the last few days, which I would say happens regularly, but it has happened more in the last maybe 3 or 4 days. And so it's been really nice to see some of that community building that can happen from this too.
I think that's a similar perspective that we have at Wakelet as well. We feel closer to our community than ever. We always say none of us here are educators, and we rely so much on the educator community to kind of help guide us in everything that we do. And just seeing everybody come together has been so inspirational for us as a team as well. It's been very inspiring for us to see that out of this situation. One of the positives I can find is that people are coming together and they are communicating a little bit more, and everything seems to be a little bit more supportive, a little bit more friendlier. It's almost like it's put things into perspective. Like I said, perhaps there could have been lapses in communication before with the team, with everybody. Now it's all like just fully on it. And I think that taking a look from our perspective and seeing what teachers are doing outside and having all these amazing ideas come in and seeing how you come together, that really is what kind of inspired us to put this webinar together in the first place, because we knew, like, you know, look how many people have joined. It's people want to learn, they want to share, they want to hear these ideas. Brandy, this is a question for you. Some students are a little bit more vulnerable, you know, than others, and they might require more face-to-face, more specialized learning. You know, how can we make it easier for these students? Because, you know, if you're used to a very, very particular certain way of working in a classroom, as a student, that might require a little bit more attention, and then all of a sudden the rug's kind of pulled from underneath you. How would you say, you know, what's the best way to deal with that from your perspective? And then we'll hear from Erin and Mariah.
Well, from my side of things, I will say that it's going to take a lot of patience and effort on the educator side. Educators need to realize that these vulnerable students, they need to have that interaction with the teachers, because it's a lot easier for them to fall behind than it is for your typically developing student. My daughter, for example, has Down syndrome, and so, you know, she's in second grade, and right now she has just been pulled out of school and she has no idea why. So she's waking up every morning saying, you know, can you go to school now? Because she loves it. And I have to try to explain to her every single day that, you know, we don't know when we can go back to school. So being able for her to talk through Zoom or any of these other platforms with her teachers, it's super helpful. As far as the students in my class, I mean, I do have a few students that are on the lower end of the spectrum, and I have to realize that as an educator, I have to step up and I have to be there for those students. So communicating with those parents daily, saying, you know, this is what we're working on in class. How can I support you while you're at home working on this with your student? It might be setting up an extra call with that child just so that we can talk for 15, 20 minutes about whatever it is that we're doing. I just really think that educators need to be very mindful of this population of students, and don't get stuck in that trap of, okay, I'll get to them when we get back to school, because those are the ones that we need to focus on more than anybody else.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I mean, Callum from Wakelet in the chat there just mentioned as well, Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is amazing for accessibility. I just want to give a quick shout out to them as well, because like the tool that they put together, we immediately integrated into Wakelet just to kind of improve that equity across the board and kind of make it so that any content that you do share, you know, it can be translated for students who might not, you know, speak English as a first language. You know, there's a whole bunch of amazing grammar and comprehension features on there as well that it can highlight. Little things like that work really well. Erin, what about yourself? How do you feel in terms of giving advice to teachers who may have more vulnerable or you know, students in their classroom that may require a little bit more attention, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, like Brandy said, the routine is just gone, you know? How would you advise teachers to kind of deal with that?
I think the important thing, and I'll back up a little bit, because I feel like technology, one of the things when I was in the classroom, I taught second and third grade, and I always felt like technology gave me this ability to differentiate in ways that I was not able to do before. Things like Immersive Reader that you're mentioning, just different ways that you could change or even add, you know, text directions that could be read aloud, giving video support. There's so many ways that technology and the digital tools that are available can help you differentiate. So as a teacher, I feel like teachers are good about figuring that out. I think in this unique situation, what teachers need to be able to do is communicate how to use those tools to the parents at home. So that, you know, we might know that you can click the button and have something read aloud through Immersive Reader, but maybe the parent that's doing that activity doesn't. So just to make sure that when you're putting your activities together, to make sure that you're also educating parents about these digital tools and what they can do and how they can support. You know, I'm currently homeschooling my 2 7-year-olds, my twins, and they both are very different. And so I'm having to figure out, you know, who wants to listen to the story, who wants to read the story, who needs the extra support here and there. And I have the background, so I'm able to do that. But, you know, I just think about, as a teacher, just to make sure that parents know what they can do and how they can adjust and how they can support their particular child too, helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I think that again goes back to having that that communication and that relationship with the parent as well. I think that might be the missing ingredient in all of this, is that, you know, if the parent's going to be spending a lot more time with the student right now, and obviously they're going to probably be the ones on the computer trying to figure out, you know, how do I get my class connected, how do I get my kid connected to Zoom, or how do I get my kid on Wakelet, that type of thing. So I think it is having that educational piece as well. Mariah, what do you think? What's your perspective on that? And also, just to kind of throw your curveball as well, because I think you may be able to answer this, but we got a really good question in the chat from Vinas, who says, how do you ensure equity and reach those students that don't have access to a computer, a device, or the internet? So it's a bit of a double whammy question for you, but we'll see how you go.
Well, I think, and Erin kind of talked about this earlier too, right? The digital divide. Like, I think equity is a really hard issue, but it's a very real issue, and it's a very real issue in so many of our communities. So there's been lots of discussion about, like, I know, for example, there's a local cable provider who's going to be providing some either discounted or free internet or hotspots locally, that might help with some. So we're a one-to-one school, but that would help with some of the folks who don't have the actual access at home. They have the device, but not the access. But I think that's a very real issue, and that's an issue that it's huge for educators, but it's also a community conversation about, you know, how do we bridge some of that. So that's the really hard part. That's a really hard question, I think. And then I think Brandy and Erin did a great job talking about, you know, some of the tools that are out there. But I would also throw this out there as a challenge to educators. I believe really strongly in student agency and students' ability to choose and have some ownership of their learning. And so this is one of those unique times that might be a really great opportunity for students to be able to talk about how they demonstrate their learning, and does it have to be in a traditional way. And so I think it's one of those things that maybe we weren't quite ready for as an educational community, but it's one of those things that might be a perfect way to reach some of our students and talk about how not only how we differentiate, but how we give them some ownership. And so, you know, how Brandy demonstrates her learning might be different than how Erin demonstrates her learning, which is different than how I choose to demonstrate my learning. And so I think those are some of those flexibilities that, you know, things that we might just have to roll with as we kind of learn through this really unique situation together.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and I do know that you know, depending on the country that you're in, I do feel like a lot of governments will step in and might help that situation out a little bit. You know, perhaps providing, you know, broadband or internet. I know that in the UK, if your broadband goes down or your internet goes down, you know, you get sent a little box, like a receiver that's like a 4G or a receiver that you can just use temporarily. Could be really cool, perhaps, if a student isn't as, you know, well connected, or perhaps doesn't have a device, or they're not in a one-to-one district or school, for something like that to happen. So I think it is perhaps a premature question at this point, in the sense that we don't know enough about the situation yet. But we'll move on anyway. So this is the sixth question, and we just have a few more, and then I guess we'll take some questions from the chat box as well. So, by the way, anybody who's watching right now, any questions that you might like to ask Brandi, Erin, or Mariah, just let us know. And if you have any questions about Wakelet, well, Callum's in the chat. That's what he's there for. That's what he's going to help you with. But we'll go to question 6, which is, it's quite a vague general question, I guess, but I wanted to hear what everybody's perspective was. A lot of people are in situations where their schools haven't been closed yet, right? They're facing school closures, like what's happening in the UK now, because it's like a lot of parents and teachers are like, right, schools are closing on Friday. Do we have contingency plans ready for this? Are we prepared? What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've experienced in your school closing? I guess we can start with Brandi, and it can be as practical or as philosophical as you like. You know, it doesn't even have to be about education. Just for yourself, what's been the biggest challenge as a teacher?
Well, I can say that my school was really lucky because we have Dr. Sampson that comes in from Ohio, and because North Carolina kind of followed that same thing that Ohio did. So we kind of knew a couple days ahead of time that this was probably going to happen to us. So last Thursday and Friday, we had professional development days, and our administration was wonderful, and they gave us those entire 2 days to start making contingency plans. I do realize that everybody's school might not have this, but I would say at this point, considering that half of the nation is already closing schools, I would go ahead and start looking at some of these platforms. Take it slowly. You're not going to get everything all at one time. I mean, even those of us who have been working with these platforms for years now, we're not getting it all at one time. So just breathe. Breathing is my biggest piece of advice. I even put together a collection where I made videos of myself walking teachers through how to set up different things in Wakelet and, importing different things. And that was my first little image that I had up there. Just breathe. So, don't stress yourself out, because we're all in this together, and you have a huge skill in here that can help you. So just reach out, and any of us are willing to help.
Amazing. That's really good advice. And what about you, Erin? What types of advice would you give? And if you've experienced school closures yourself in your district, what would you say are the biggest challenges? And how could you? Well, not the biggest challenges, because then the list would be endless. But what would you say is the biggest challenge, and how could you possibly try and overcome that?
Well, I'm not personally teaching at the moment. I'm outside of the classroom, but I would say the biggest thing that I kind of hear in teachers that I talk to regularly is it's a little overwhelming because there is almost too much stuff. What am I going to choose to deliver content? Where am I getting this material? Am I sending stuff home? And I'm doing it digitally? It's almost like too much. So my advice would be to stick with what you already know at first. You can introduce new things if you want down the line when you're feeling a little more confident, but pick something that you already know how to do that hopefully you've introduced in class before, or if not, it's going to be the one thing that you're going to be, doing. If that's going to be, Wakelet, then use Wakelet for the first 5-10 days so that you're comfortable with it. The other thing is, don't reinvent the wheel. Connect with other educators. A lot of people in the international community have already gone through school closures and have been in this situation for, a lot longer than we have. So connect with them, see what they did, see what they suggest, what's working for them. Find things that are already created and made. There's plenty of educational videos that you can find. Even just things like our local zoo has put together videos and tours. Like, that's a great place to start. You don't need to make everything from scratch. Use what's already out there, connect with others. And then just the other one is always do less than you think. A typical lesson in a classroom when you have students focused attention, cut that in half because home is not the same thing. If you're thinking of a 45-minute lesson in the classroom, think about really providing like 20 minutes of focused stuff for students to do and to watch and to read. Just because there's a lot more distractions at home. They might be sharing a device with somebody else. They might have other things going on, whether they're watching a sibling or a parent is working. So just to not overwhelm families as well, make sure that everything that you're planning is appropriate for the time that your district is requiring the remote learning.
Yeah, I was speaking to one teacher the other day who's facing a remote closure, and a remote learning situation in a school closure, and she kind of said the same thing. She said, "Look, you're not going to be able to teach at the level that you can in a classroom. It's a very unrealistic, bar to set." Right. And also what she was doing was she was creating a list. So she was like, "I'm in a situation where online, every single person is suggesting 100 different tools. And, I don't know what they do. I don't know if they're free. I don't know how they work. I need tutorials on them. And my school has just closed. Like, how am I supposed to deal with this situation?" So the way that she was working with it was, she said, "I'm just picking like 3 tools and I'm like working through them. I'm learning how to do like the very basic entry level stuff with them, taking my time with it, settling in, and then trying to do it that way." Because I think it's impossible to expect teachers all of a sudden, especially ones who may not be that keyed into ed tech in general, all of a sudden decide like, "Oh my God, now I'm gonna become this absolute superhero. I'm gonna use every tool under the sun." I think that you're 100% right, Erin. It's just a case of scaling it back a little bit, taking it slow, and like what Brandy said as well, breathe. What about yourself, Mariah? What would you say the biggest challenge has been at Cedar Crest?
So I think one of our biggest challenges was we got the notification that we were closing Friday after 3 p.m. and we dismissed at 3 o'clock. And so we closed on Friday with no knowledge that we were closing, and our kiddos didn't know they weren't coming back to school on Monday. So for us, I think that's been a huge challenge, just trying to figure out the logistics of what that means. So kiddos who went home maybe without an instrument, kiddos who went home without knowing they weren't coming back and didn't take a laptop home or forgot a charger, some of those logistical things, because we didn't really have time to plan what that might have meant. So I think that the other biggest challenge for us is making sure that our students are okay, right? Making sure everyone is okay, and making sure that we've got a plan in place to distribute food. And so, those are things that we've been really focused on, and now we're kind of turning our attention to, well, what happens next? So, so for us as a district, it's kind of been just getting some of the logistical things underneath us right now, and then kind of turning to the online learning piece, or the learning platforms, or what happens for the rest of this current closure, and what happens if it gets extended. Because I think that's kind of where we all sit right now. I mean, hurry up and wait.
I mean, it's like such short notice. You know what I mean? It's. I don't think anybody can have truly prepared enough for something like this, and I think that's one of the common things that we're seeing in the educator community, is that it's like, you know, we didn't know this was going to happen. You know what I mean? So I think that it's just layers and layers on top of each other of you know, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear, a little bit of not knowing which particular tools to use and how to use them. So no, you're 100% right. Now, like I keep saying this over and over again, the kind of response from the educator community to all of this has been really good. You know, you've all come together and worked on solutions. What can we do as edtech companies to kind of help support you? Because, you know, ever since this happened, the Wakelet team in particular, like I said, we've kind of been into overdrive. We've realized that there's this huge need to help support this remote learning story. And what would you guys like to see more from us and other edtech companies, you know, in this community? Brandy, should we start with you and then move up?
I mean, personally, I think that you guys in particular, but many of the other online platforms, y'all are doing an amazing job. You have all been there when we needed you. You know, questions, y'all get back with us very quickly. And, you know, the platforms like Zoom, they've become available for free to educators. And then you had other ones like Rise Kids, the Reading A to Z, Learning A to Z platform. They're offering things up for educators. So, I mean, I think just continuing this spiral where, you know, realizing that educators already don't have enough money to spend on these platforms as it is. So making it available to them to use in times like this is really great. I know for me personally, it's helped me a lot because, you know, I have those parents that want their kids to continue, even if it's just a few minutes a day. So having access to things like Rise Kids has been very helpful. So, you know, I can't ask for too much more than that. You know, free is kind of as good as it gets.
Oh, thank you, Erin. What about you? How do you think edtech companies like Wakelet and other companies and, you know, platforms can help support? And, you know, have we been doing a good job so far?
This is the part where we praise you. No, I mean, I appreciate
this isn't a setup, by the way. Like,
right.
I know it might seem like it, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Wakelet, to me, like, you recognize that people learn in different ways. I appreciate that there was a PDF. If you're somebody like me, like, sometimes I just like to read things. I made a joke on Instagram the other day about webinars, and here I'm in one. You know, I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily learn the best that way. I'm like a reader, like, give me a long blog post and I'll dive in. So just recognizing that teachers, parents, we're going to learn the information in a different way. Giving us PDFs, giving us video support, giving us examples, I think always helps. You know, and not just teachers, you know, like I said before, like thinking about parents and caregivers, like who is going to be helping the actual kid on the platform. Thinking about the lens that they might approach, maybe simplifying a little bit, like a parent doesn't need to know or a caregiver doesn't need to know every last little bit, but what can they know about this platform that'll help their child in this, you know, 20 minutes they're going to do the lesson. Yeah, I do appreciate that Wakelet has kind of provided a bunch of different ways for us to, connect, get information. There's Wakelets about like pretty much anything, any kind of thing you're looking for, you can find a Wakelet, a collection. If you need, activities or videos for your kids to watch or apps that are going to keep them occupied, it's nice and flexible. I think maybe that's the word I'm thinking of, flexible, being flexible with what you're providing for teachers and caregivers.
Oh, thank you. I mean,
sorry, Brandy. Can I piggyback on that? So at the same time, these different companies have been actually making videos like how-to. I've seen several different ones pop up here lately. So, understanding that we don't know how to use all of these platforms that are being offered for free. So, having them actually go in and give us little demos, that's been wonderful as well.
Yeah, this week we noticed that actually. This week we've spent a lot of time going back and looking and saying, actually looking at the platform from the perspective of a teacher who may not be, as we say, like tech savvy, like somebody who's, we've tried to distill the message and how the platform works as though a teacher's never, used a computer before even. And it's been really, really challenging, but this situation has kind of made us look at it in that way and really try and simplify our message and what we're doing. So you'll find that a lot of the resources that we're sharing now, we don't only want to make it easier for you to understand, but also other teachers in your community who may not be on Twitter, who may not know all the cool hashtags, who may not be, they're part of the community, but they're not part of like the community type thing. So that's been one of the challenges that we face for sure. But I think it's a positive at least, because it's really it's helped us look at what we're doing and distill it and simplify it as much as we possibly can. Mariah, what about you? What do you think on the subject?
I think the EdTech outreach has been amazing. I think educators across the world are just so grateful for their outreach. I would venture to say it's probably a little overwhelming, especially for some of our folks who probably aren't quite as tech savvy, right? Because they went from happily teaching their 25 students in a contained classroom in their own safe space to now kind of being thrust into this like, oh my gosh, like what do we do now kind of world. So I think that's is kind of the unspoken that's out there, right? That it's super overwhelming, I think, for some folks. But I think the response has been amazing, and I don't think that as the world of education probably can't thank EdTech enough for the things they've been doing. But I do think that I think just as I've been kind of going through, I've been saving links and saving some of those free things, like the free museum tours, the free zoo tours, I've been trying to save all of those links in a collection this week, so that as we kind of get closer for the what comes next stage of this game, right, that there are some resources that we've had a chance to vet, and I think that's kind of that next step, at least for us, is what are the resources that teachers need, right? Because teachers probably need like the little tutorial on how to or some teachers will need the little tutorial on how to do something, but students might not. So what are like the student resources that are out there, and what are the teacher resources? Because I think they're two separate things, and if you mush them all together, it gets super overwhelming. And so I think that's the big thing in my mind as we kind of move forward.
Yeah, I know we've seen a lot of EdTech platforms offer premium versions for free and that type of thing, and it's just really nice to see people coming together and helping support the community. I think that the perspective that we took on it, obviously we're a free platform anyway, but I think the perspective that we took on it was we really wanted to see what the community felt about the whole situation, I think, before we kind of did anything. We didn't want to kind of just start building as much as we can and then just throw them, because we understand that it can be overwhelming for people, this EdTech world. It can be very overwhelming, even for, seasoned pros. So once we realized this is what the community are looking for, this is what teachers are looking for, we created more guides, we've created areas on the site now that show off collections a little bit better. So we've got our new showcase area, which we just launched today. We've got a remote learning pack that Callum's been sharing. And another thing as well, which is really nice, is we're looking at things that we've done in the past and initiatives, and we're realizing how well they apply to this current situation. So I think it was like a month or so back, we launched our student ambassador program. I'm just going to click the link here. We launched our student ambassador program just, because it's something really cool to do. This program basically allows students to complete 6 tasks all around the 6 C's. It's for over 13, so there's a lot of stuff on digital citizenship, collaboration, communication. It's created by educators, for educators. And when we first put this out, it was just a way for students to become ambassadors and, you know, empower that leadership and that passion. And it's like now we've noticed that teachers are coming to us and they're like, you know, wow, that student ambassador program really kind of helped me out a little bit because, you know, I didn't have my stuff together ready for it, but this is like a ready-made collection. It's like a ready-made learning pack that requires very, very little face-to-face communication with the teacher. It's all about independent learning. And all of the tasks can be done remotely, you know? So that's something that we've found has been really, really cool as well. So we're looking at ways to probably enhance that even further, promote it a little bit more, just as a way for teachers who may be struggling to find those like little engaging, cool things to do with their students, to just put that in and just be like, look, this usually would have taken, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on pace, but you can start it now and get it done in the week and do that whilst I kind of prepare what I'm doing, you know, and plan that for the rest of the week. So it's nice that we've sort of, you know, been able to help in that way. But it looks like we've come to the end. I can't believe an hour's gone so quickly. We'll be holding webinars like this very, very frequently. So, you know, during this time, we know that a lot more teachers are working from home, so they can jump onto a webinar, you know, even if it is slap bang in the middle of the day. It's 9 p.m. for us now, so we're going to do them a little bit earlier. Well, we're going to hold actually 2 webinars, one at 4 p.m. UK time and one at 8 p.m. UK time, just for beginners to get kind of acclimatized to Wakelet and learn. So you can share those webinars with your community if you want your teachers to find out more about Wakelet in a really simple way. And remote learning, we've got another webinar coming out in a couple of weeks about that as well. But stay tuned to us on social media. We've got loads coming out. We're trying to support you as much as we can. It's, you know, it may help, it may not, but we want to try our best and just keep the feedback coming. Sharon, the date of the webinar, you will, there you go. Oh no, Callum, if you'd be able to get the date of the webinar for Sharon, but we will be posting it out on the community newsletter as well. I don't want to do too much shameless plugging at this point. I just think it's been amazing what's happened tonight. I know that, you know, our presenters, Brandi, Erin, and Mariah, such short notice. I want to thank you all so much for joining us and sharing your expertise and your passion, your knowledge with us. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, everybody stay safe. You know, it's turbulent times out there right now, very, very unpredictable. We don't know what's happening. I literally just got a news alert that it looks like London's going to be on like complete lockdown now. So we're going to have to kind of deal with that as well on top of everything else. So it is turbulent times, but the least that we can do, I guess, is do things like this, come together, share our experiences, and just let everybody feel like you're not alone. We're all in this together, right? So yeah, I wanted to say thank you to everybody, and I guess we'll leave it at that. Oh, also, last thing, those of you who are interested, we do have a certificate for this particular session. So at the end, you should receive an email from ClickMeeting. If you just follow the link, you'll be able to download your certificate as a PDF, just to say that you were been there and wore the t-shirt. So we thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Stay safe out there. Thank you so much.